What happens when you see truths that others cannot? Is it a gift or is it a curse? Imagine walking through life with eyes that perceive hidden layers beneath the surface of reality, while everyone around you seems blind to what you see so clearly. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in depth psychology, understood this paradox better than anyone. He believed that those who see beyond the ordinary world are often confronted with dangers others will never face. But why? And what makes this vision so heavy to carry? Think about it. When you notice patterns, motives, and hidden truths that others ignore, you can't simply unsee them. You may recognize the shadow in people's words, the unspoken conflicts behind their actions, or even the silent lies of society itself. Have you ever felt that way? Aware of something no one else seemed to notice? At first, this kind of awareness feels empowering, like you've been given access to a secret map of human behavior. But very soon, you realize it comes at a cost. People resist those who expose uncomfortable truths. They might call you strange, distant, or even dangerous. Jung himself experienced this isolation. His insights into the unconscious and the shadow challenged the norms of his time, and he was often dismissed or criticized for daring to see what others could not. The danger here isn't only external. It's not just about how society reacts. The real battle happens inside. Carrying such vision can feel overwhelming, even unbearable. The burden of awareness can lead to loneliness, doubt, or the haunting sense that you stand apart from everyone else. The question is, why does seeing what others don't feel so threatening? Perhaps it's because most people prefer the comfort of blindness over the pain of truth. And if you happen to see more than they do, you become a mirror they don't want to face. Fewer things are more dangerous than exposing illusions that people rely on to survive. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely change the way you understand the gift and the curse of deep perception. The danger of seeing what others don't is not only a psychological challenge, but also a profound existential test, one that Jung believed could either destroy you or set you free. And this is where our journey begins. And maybe you've felt this in your own life, the moment when you noticed something others ignored, and suddenly you carried a truth no one else seemed ready to face. That experience can be isolating, but it can also be a powerful reminder that you're not alone in this struggle. In fact, that's why this space exists, to create a community where people who see deeper can come together and share what they've learned along the way. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of this idea speaks the most to you? Have you ever felt the weight of seeing what others don't? Leave a comment below and share your story. It not only helps you process your own experience, but it also lets others realize they're not walking this path by themselves. And if you find value in conversations like this, take a moment to like this video. It's a simple gesture, but it tells the platform that this message matters, and it helps more people discover it. And of course, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can keep exploring these ideas with us. Every time you engage, whether by commenting, liking, or subscribing, you're helping build a place where wisdom, psychology, and philosophy can reach further and inspire more lives. So stay with me, because this journey is only beginning, and the deeper we go, the more revealing and dangerous the vision becomes. Carl Jung was not just another psychologist. He was a pioneer who dared to explore the hidden layers of the human mind that most people were afraid to confront. While others focused on what could be measured and observed, Jung stepped into the invisible, the mysterious, and the often frightening territories of the unconscious. He believed that behind every decision, every reaction, and every fear, there were forces moving silently in the background, shaping our lives without us even noticing. To him, psychology wasn't just about studying behavior on the surface. It was about uncovering the unseen truths that influence who we are and who we might become. What made Jung's perspective so unique was his courage to say that human beings are not fully rational. Beneath our daily routines and choices lies a vast ocean of symbols, archetypes, and hidden patterns that guide us in ways logic cannot explain. He introduced the idea that we all carry within us a shadow, the unacknowledged parts of our personality that we often deny. And here lies the danger. Once you see your own shadow or the shadow in others, you cannot pretend it doesn't exist. You realize that much of what drives people is not what they say or believe, but what they hide, repress, or fear. This revelation is both liberating and terrifying. It gives you a new lens to understand humanity, but it also strips away the illusions that keep life simple. That is why Jung's work feels so powerful even today. It forces us to face uncomfortable truths about our own psychology, truths that can transform our entire mental framework if we dare to confront them. Think of the impact this has on your relationships, your career, even the way you see yourself. It changes the way you interpret silence, conflict, and the hidden motives behind people's choices. It's like stepping backstage during a performance and finally seeing the ropes, the costumes, and the machinery that create the show. Once you know the truth behind the curtain, the world never looks the same again. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding Jung's perspective on the unconscious is more than theory. It's a journey of transformation that can shift how you live and the way you interpret every hidden message around you. And before we continue, write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." When you begin to see beyond the ordinary, when your perception starts to reach into places most people would rather avoid, you quickly realize that knowledge can be isolating. The human mind craves comfort, and comfort often comes from shared illusions, the quiet agreement that we will not disturb what lies beneath the surface. But the moment you start to reveal hidden realities, whether about yourself, others, or society at large, you become a disruptive presence. People resist those who pull away the veil, not because they don't recognize some truth in it, but because acknowledging it forces them to confront parts of themselves they would rather keep buried. Carl Jung knew this feeling well. His willingness to dive into the unconscious and speak of archetypes, shadows, and the collective psyche made him a revolutionary, but it also made him an outsider. For years, Jung worked closely with Sigmund Freud, who at the time was building his own empire of psychoanalysis. Yet Jung's refusal to accept Freud's rigid focus on sexuality as the root of all psychological life caused a rift so deep that Jung was eventually cast out from Freud's circle. The academic world, too, resisted his explorations into spirituality, mythology, and symbolism, labeling them unscientific and impractical. He was often criticized for stepping beyond the accepted boundaries of psychology, for daring to say that dreams, myths, and hidden images carried truths that shaped the very structure of human behavior. This rejection came at a personal cost. Jung entered what he later described as his most difficult period, facing visions, inner conflicts, and long stretches of solitude. But in that very isolation, he deepened his insights. It was in silence, away from the applause or approval of others, that he developed some of his most profound ideas. His struggle shows us something vital. When you see differently, you will not always be celebrated. More often, you will be misunderstood, ignored, or even attacked. Yet that isolation is also a crucible, a place where your vision either collapses under the weight of loneliness or transforms into wisdom that can withstand resistance. And this raises a question worth asking yourself. How many times have you felt distanced because you noticed something others refused to see? Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the line between vision as a gift and vision as a burden is thinner than most people imagine. Vision, in its deepest sense, is always a paradox. On one side, it is a gift, an extraordinary capacity to perceive the hidden structures of life and human behavior that remain invisible to most. It allows you to notice patterns others overlook, to sense the underlying motives that drive decisions, to understand the shadow behind the mask. It can sharpen your intuition, guide your choices, and give you a sense of clarity in a world clouded by confusion. To see more than others is to carry a kind of light in the darkness, a power that can transform not only your own life, but also the lives of those who are ready to listen. Yet at the same time, this vision is a heavy burden. The very awareness that liberates you can also set you apart, cutting you off from the comfort of belonging. Carl Jung recognized this tension clearly. For him, the ability to see deeper into the unconscious was never purely celebratory. It was always shadowed by the weight of responsibility. When you see what others don't, you carry truths that cannot easily be shared. Most people would rather protect their illusions, and when confronted with someone who threatens those illusions, their instinct is to reject, mock, or isolate that person. What begins as a gift of insight often turns into the experience of being misunderstood, misrepresented, or even feared. This is why vision can feel like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can anchor you in wisdom and give you a compass when others are lost. On the other, it can make you question whether the knowledge you hold is worth the loneliness it creates. Jung's writings reveal how deeply he wrestled with this. His explorations brought him revelations about archetypes, symbols, and the collective unconscious, but they also left him standing on the margins of the psychological establishment. His life is a testimony to the fact that deeper understanding does not always lead to greater acceptance. Perhaps you have felt this paradox in your own journey. Maybe you noticed truths in a relationship that no one else wanted to see, or questioned social norms that others obeyed without hesitation. In those moments, vision feels like both a blessing and a curse, empowering you with clarity while pulling you into solitude. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this tension between light and shadow leads directly to Jung's most challenging idea, the confrontation with the shadow itself. Jung believed that the greatest danger of seeing what others don't is not simply about perceiving the hidden flaws of the world outside, but about confronting the hidden truths within ourselves. This is where the concept of the shadow becomes central. The shadow is everything we deny, repress, or refuse to acknowledge about our own nature. It is made up of impulses we label unacceptable, desires we fear, mistakes we try to forget, and instincts we bury beneath layers of social masks. To see the shadow is to face the raw, unpolished side of human nature, the parts that most people would rather keep locked away in darkness. And this is precisely why vision can be so dangerous. Once you see your shadow, you can never return to the comfort of ignorance. For Jung, the shadow was not only an individual reality, but also a collective one. Entire societies and cultures have shadows, truths they deny, wounds they cover up, hypocrisies they refuse to admit. When someone begins to perceive these hidden dimensions, it often provokes resistance. People protect their illusions because illusions make life feel safe, predictable, and controlled. To pierce through them is to expose the fragility of that safety, and most would rather stay blind than risk having their world shattered. Consider how this plays out in daily life. A person who points out corruption within a system is often silenced or ridiculed. Someone who notices toxic patterns in a family may be rejected for disturbing the fragile harmony. Even in our own minds, when we catch glimpses of jealousy, anger, or fear that we thought we had buried, our first instinct is denial. This is why Jung insisted that real growth requires immense courage to integrate the shadow instead of rejecting it. Yet here lies the paradox again. Confronting the shadow is painful, but avoiding it is far more destructive in the long run. Blindness creates cycles of self-sabotage and collective dysfunction, while awareness, though uncomfortable, opens the path to transformation. Vision, then, is not only about seeing more, it is about bearing the weight of what is seen. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the struggle with the shadow has marked the destiny of countless thinkers, leaders, and visionaries who dared to reveal truths others refused to face. History is filled with examples of men and women who carried a vision too heavy for their time. To see beyond the ordinary is not a modern struggle, it is a universal pattern that repeats itself through centuries. Those who perceive hidden truths, who dare to unveil what others cannot or will not see, often pay a price for their clarity. Their insights are dismissed, their voices silenced, and in many cases their very lives put at risk. The story of misunderstood visionaries is the story of humanity resisting its own awakening. Take Friedrich Nietzsche, for example. His philosophy cut through the illusions of morality, religion, and cultural comfort. He warned of the dangers of blind conformity and challenged society to embrace the terrifying freedom of creating one's own values. Yet during his lifetime, Nietzsche was ridiculed, isolated, and labeled a madman. Only after his death did the world begin to grasp the magnitude of his ideas, and even then, they were often distorted or misused. His vision allowed him to see the deep crises of meaning that would shape the modern era. But that same vision condemned him to loneliness. The same fate has touched prophets and reformers across cultures. Those who stood against corruption or unveiled uncomfortable truths were branded as threats. Socrates, questioning the foundations of Athenian society, was sentenced to drink poison. Religious prophets throughout history, from Jeremiah to Muhammad, were scorned, persecuted, or forced into exile because they confronted the illusions of their age. Their stories echo Jung's warning. Truth, when revealed too soon or too directly, is often met not with gratitude but with hostility. Even artists and scientists have walked this path. Galileo dared to say that the earth revolved around the sun, and for this he faced trial and condemnation. Vincent van Gogh painted the world as he saw it, intense, raw, and alive with colors unseen by others, and he died misunderstood, unappreciated, and in poverty. Visionaries are often forced to live with the unbearable contradiction of knowing they are right, but seeing the world reject them. This pattern is not only historical, it is psychological. Humanity resists awakening because awakening demands transformation, and transformation threatens comfort. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because understanding the personal cost of vision leads us to explore the psychological weight it places on those who carry it. The price of vision is not measured only in the rejection of others, it is also felt in the quiet weight carried within. When you see too much, when you notice the cracks beneath the polished surface of life, you begin to realize that awareness can be both illuminating and crushing. The inner toll of perception is often invisible, but it runs deep, shaping the way a person feels, thinks, and moves through the world. Jung himself described long periods of inner struggle, moments when the truths he uncovered became almost unbearable, pulling him into states of despair and isolation. For those who carry such vision, the mind can feel like a battlefield where insight collides with the longing for peace. Despair often arises because once illusions are stripped away, the comfort of simplicity is lost. Anxiety emerges because to see what others deny is to constantly wrestle with contradictions. You know the truth, yet you live in a society that pretends otherwise. You sense hidden motives in relationships, yet you are expected to act as if everything is normal. This dissonance creates a heavy psychological burden, a kind of double life between the clarity within and the blindness outside. For many, it leads to loneliness, the sense of being disconnected from the very community they long to belong to. There is also the haunting question, what do you do with knowledge that others cannot accept? Some try to suppress it, forcing themselves back into the comfort of ignorance. Others retreat into isolation, protecting themselves from misunderstanding but suffering in silence. And some, like Jung, learn to transform the weight into creative expression, writing, teaching, or building new frameworks of thought that can eventually bridge the gap between vision and society. Yet even for them, the struggle never disappears. This human side of vision is essential to recognize because it reminds us that being able to see more is not about superiority. It is about responsibility, and responsibility is heavy. Those who see too much often feel as though they are carrying a burden on behalf of others, a burden of truths denied, wounds unhealed, and illusions unbroken. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because the only way to endure such weight is through courage and responsibility, and this is where the path of true strength begins. Carrying a vision that others resist is not simply about enduring rejection from the outside world. The true challenge lies within, the daily effort to hold that vision without collapsing under its weight. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself, demands extraordinary courage because it requires facing truths that shake the foundations of identity. To see deeply into the unconscious is to confront both light and darkness, to integrate contradictions, and to stand firm in the storm of inner conflict. Without courage, vision can overwhelm. With courage, it becomes the raw material of transformation. The danger is internal because the mind resists what it cannot control. When you discover aspects of yourself that feel alien or disturbing, jealousy, aggression, weakness, fear, the instinct is to deny or repress them. But repression only gives the shadow more power, allowing it to act unconsciously in destructive ways. Jung's insight was radical. The only way forward is not to escape these truths, but to embrace them, to hold them consciously, and to weave them into a fuller, more authentic self. This is not easy. It requires responsibility, the willingness to accept that the truths you see, however painful, belong to you and cannot be projected onto others. Courage, then, is not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk into it. It is the act of saying yes to the discomfort of awareness, rather than retreating into the illusion of ignorance. Jung often compared this journey to a descent into the underworld, a mythic passage where the hero must face monsters before returning with wisdom. To live with vision is to take that descent, again and again, to risk the disintegration of certainty in order to emerge with a deeper sense of wholeness. Responsibility is the companion to courage, because vision without responsibility easily turns destructive. If you see truths, but use them to manipulate, judge, or dominate others, you have betrayed the gift. True responsibility means carrying vision in a way that uplifts, that seeks integration rather than division. Jung believed that this was the essence of individuation, to become whole not by denying darkness, but by embracing it consciously, and in doing so, to embody a life that inspires others. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once we understand the need for courage and responsibility, we can begin to see how vision, if embraced, transforms from a burden into a source of power and growth. The paradox of vision is that it can either crush you or elevate you. To see what others don't is dangerous when resisted, but it can become a source of profound strength when embraced with discipline and wisdom. Jung's work shows us that the very truths we fear can be transformed into energy for growth if we are willing to face them fully. The shadow that once terrified us becomes a guide. The loneliness of isolation turns into clarity, and the burden of perception transforms into the power of authenticity. This is where philosophy becomes practical, not just abstract ideas, but tools for survival and transformation. Think about it. Resisting. Vision is like trying to hold back a flood with your bare hands. The pressure builds, and sooner or later, it breaks through in destructive ways, through anxiety, despair, or self-sabotage. But if you learn to channel the flow, to direct the force rather than deny it, the same water that could drown you becomes the current that carries you forward. This is the difference between those who collapse under the weight of awareness and those who rise with it. Discipline is the bridge. By cultivating practices that anchor you, reflection, journaling, meditation, or dialogue, you learn to carry vision without being consumed by it. Wisdom, too, is essential. It is not enough to see the truth. You must also know when and how to use it. Some truths, if revealed without care, can destroy relationships or destabilize communities. Jung understood that the wise use of vision requires timing, compassion, and discernment. To turn danger into power is to hold knowledge like fire, destructive in careless hands but life-giving when tended with skill. And there is something deeply motivational here. The very qualities that once made you feel like an outsider can become the foundation of your strength. Your sensitivity, your ability to notice patterns, your refusal to live in illusions, these are not weaknesses. They are signs that you are capable of carrying a deeper responsibility. The key is to embrace them, not with arrogance, but with humility and courage. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because once vision is transformed into power, the final step is understanding its ultimate meaning, the choice between blindness and awakening, and what that choice says about who we become. So the danger of seeing what others don't is real. It is the risk of isolation, the weight of carrying truths no one else wants to acknowledge, and the constant tension between clarity and loneliness. But perhaps the greater danger is choosing blindness when your eyes are already open. To deliberately ignore what you have seen, to retreat into illusion after glimpsing the truth, is to betray yourself at the deepest level. Awareness is not something you can unsee. Once the veil has lifted, pretending otherwise only multiplies the pain. Carl Jung believed that the path to individuation demands that we accept this responsibility. To see is to carry, and to carry is to transform. Every moment of awareness can either destroy or rebuild you depending on how you respond. If you resist, vision becomes a source of inner conflict, tearing at your peace of mind. But if you embrace it with discipline, courage, and wisdom, vision becomes the seed of a new self, a self that is stronger, more authentic, and capable of navigating life with depth. The gift of seeing what others don't is not about superiority. It is about awakening, about refusing to live on the surface when you know there is more beneath. And maybe that is the real challenge. Not just surviving the burden of vision, but using it to shape a meaningful life. Visionaries throughout history remind us that truth, though often rejected, has the power to outlast the resistance it encounters. And each of us, in our own way, is faced with the same choice. Do we hide from what we've seen, or do we accept the transformation it demands? This is not just philosophy. It is a decision about how you live, how you relate to others, and how you confront your own shadow. So let me ask you, what do you think? Have you ever felt the burden of seeing what others cannot? Share your thoughts below and join this community of deep thinkers. Your voice matters here because every perspective adds to the collective wisdom we are building together. And as you write, remember, Sometimes the truth you carry alone is the very truth someone else is waiting to hear. If you've made it all the way here, it probably means this message spoke to something inside you. That's exactly why this channel exists, to bring together people who are searching for deeper understanding and who aren't afraid to face the truths most ignore. If you want to keep exploring these ideas with me, make sure you subscribe, because every new video is a step further on this journey into psychology, philosophy, and timeless wisdom. And I'd love to know you were here until the end. Leave a comment with the words, "I'm with you until the end." It's a simple way to let me know this message reached you, and it also helps others see they're not alone in this path. If this conversation resonated, give this video a like. It's a small action, but it tells me and the platform that these ideas matter and should reach more people. And don't stop here. There's another video right next to this one that continues the journey and opens a new perspective. Click and keep going with me there. We've only just begun.